everybody, wherever you watching me from, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, everywhere in my club, the To All the Girls Success Club. Welcome. My name is Lisa Dublin. I'm a health and life coach, and I help professionals to be able to speak, to lead, and to live with confidence. How are you doing this morning? This is like not my usual time. I usually wake up very early, but this morning it wasn't happening. It's the summertime, and I live in Edmonton, and so it's definitely later. It stays light later, and obviously the family stays up. We were watching movies. Oh my goodness, we were having a wonderful time last night, and so I couldn't get up to do my normal 4 a.m. this morning. Okay, 4 a.m. in my part of the world. You can catch me most mornings in the To All the Girls Success Club. And so send an invitation and I'll let you into the club. There it is. Yeah, let me just put on that ticker right there. And yeah, that's a good place to find me most mornings. So, how are you doing today? And how's life going for you? Yesterday, everywhere, I posted an article called Managing Relationships. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it today because I think it's just so important that we are able to manage relationships. You know how much stress relationships cost? They just cause you a lot of stress and they cost a lot, and sometimes they make you leave jobs. Like actually, I know some people right now who have left jobs because they just can't get on with the people in the office. Has that ever happened to you? How have you managed relationships, and are you managing the relationships in your life right now? So if you're listening to me, please say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it. I won't be on very long, but I feel like the older that I've gotten is the more that I have invested in being careful about my relationships, being careful in terms of sitting back and realizing that I am not just a victim. I'm not a victim, and I'm not just somebody who's receiving in a relationship. I can proactively handle and treat with the relationship in a way that makes it pleasant, that makes it a positive experience, whether the person comes into your life for a season. You know how they say people come into your life for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. Hi, Batiste. Hi, good morning, Diamond. How are you doing? Good morning to you. And I literally believe that. I think they can overlap. Like, obviously, you have a sense of sometimes, it's going to be a long term relationship. I think I want to be around this person for the rest of my life. And I'm not just talking romantic relationships, I'm speaking about friendships, about even professional relationships that stand the test of time. Hey, Kara, watching from Guyana. Nice. Good morning to you. And yeah, we have to use emotional intelligence in our relationships, and we have to use heart, and we have to use basic humanity. I was saying in the article yesterday, whether people come into your life for a reason, season, lifetime, whatever, you don't have to necessarily like someone to be able to treat them well. Obviously, the liking scale perhaps determines whether you're going to keep that person close, whether you're going to be bosom buddies. I don't believe relationships have to be stressful, okay? If you have a professional relationship and you have to work together, you literally have to work together. But in terms of friendships and so on, I think we get to decide who we want to be around, and who kind of gels with us, that kind of thing. But I think there's a sense of basic humanity, of stepping back, and as Batista is saying here, Bajata is saying here, just basically, can I use that sense of checking in with myself, what's happening, and being self-aware, and not jumping to conclusions about the person, but stepping back to kind of figure out. For me, it's always a check of what's going on here. Like, what's this person about? I love to do that in my relationships. And the older I get, it's something about checking in with yourself to see where you're at with this person, what's going on. One of the things that I've learned to do I do a lot now, is to kind of look at my relationships and to ask the question, since this person walked into my life in whatever, well, I've been married a long time, so that one's out the door, right? But in terms of professional relationships and friendships and even casual acquaintances, since you walked into my life, have I grown? Am I better for it? Or have I am I stagnating in any way? Am I folding myself into corners because of you? Right? I always ask these questions to kind of determine the value of the relationship, the nature of it, and see whether it needs to be adjusted. And I think that's something that we can all do. So, just those people around you right now, those friends who've been with you for a long time, and those professional relationships that you think are so important and you are pursuing, but might be causing you stress. Okay, it's a good thing to check in. Am I growing in this? Is this person adding to me? Am I adding to that person? Is this a matter of me being a victim in the relationship and that person always being the person who's rescuing me? I've realized that sometimes there are some people who can only relate to you if you are in need. And I don't think that's very healthy. You can't always be the victim. You have stuff to offer too. You're never coming into a relationship needing to be fixed. Always needing to be, schooled. If it's that kind of that if it's that kind of relationship, that means you can never grow. What happens when you grow? What happens when you develop and when you get stronger? That person who only knows you as a victim becomes resentful and might actually, I've seen it happen, might actually be the person who says, starts to put you down and starts to be the person who's tearing at you instead of building you up, because there's nothing to build up, because they've always been the person who is the savior in the relationship. That I don't think is healthy. That I don't think is healthy. So there's something else that I've found so fascinating just lately, dealing a lot with relationships, especially because, like, the last 2 years, we have been online a lot. I've built a lot of virtual relationships that I've had opportunity to test out face to face recently and realize the worth of them on not having any value. And I found a very useful, well, it has to do with emotional intelligence, but I got certified as a speaker with Eric Thomas. And one of his coaching programs, he talks about there being four kinds of people. It basically is another way of talking about the different personality types. And I'll tell you why I found it very useful. So he talks about there being the pilot, the person who's the driver, the person who, is in charge. The A-type personalities that we know some of them. I think I'm an A-type. I think I'm a pilot. We all know them. They know what they want. They get it done. They're concerned about performance, about execution, that kind of thing. Okay, so we have those types. Then we also have the air traffic controllers, the administrators, okay? Those people who are concerned about, how is it going to happen? The policies, the procedures, the things that can make stuff happen. Then you have the flight attendants, the hi, how you doing? They're all into people. They're extroverted. They get their energy from being around people. They want to make sure everybody is, just feeling okay. They're the people's persons. And one that I find very, very fascinating, honestly, is the grounds crew. Those people you can count on to just do what needs to be done. They are comfortable being in the background. They might not, they are the workhorses of an institution, of a relationship, even of a group. They would do what needs to be done. They will, and with no recourse to like, those kinds of people. I hope you know what I'm talking about. I hope you know what I'm talking about, right? And when I looked at it that way, it has helped me to really appreciate people for the roles that they play in our lives. One dynamic that I've seen play out on podcasts that I listen to that have different types of personalities, one type of what I found the dynamic between the pilot and the ground crew and everybody else, but especially the pilot who is so focused on, achieving execution, right? And if that person is not mindful and aware, that person has trouble appreciating a ground crew member of the team. And it really hurts my heart. Like, it's not kind. It can come across as just downright mean and dismissive, but not realizing that that ground crew person is the one who's like the cogs of the wheels. That person makes things happen and does it in the dark and does it without any fanfare, does it without being told, but is the workhorse. And if there's no appreciation even for the role and the value of a ground crew, especially from people who are the pilots and feel like you're nothing unless you're at the top, unless you're winning, unless you're visible, unless you're out there, unless you're the executive. Like, you have to tone that down. And if you recognize and realize that people play different roles and each role is equally important, so you would need the pilot will need an air traffic controller, that person who's administrative and puts policies and procedures and says we're doing this first and this then this second, etc. That person would need that. You're also going to need the flight attendant who kind of, when the pilot perhaps ruffles feathers, when the pilot who's driving might not be as concerned with, figuring out what people are feeling. And that air traffic, that flight attendant personality is checking in with people. How are you doing? So you find those people in, perhaps in HR roles, VP roles as well, right? So the yeah, as you're saying, it's very true. The pilot must realize the different expertise needed for a successful team. I just find it fascinating, those dynamics, and how if we just appreciate the value and the roles that we each bring to each other's lives, we are better able to appreciate each other. So, what about you? Do you have difficult relationships, and how have you handled them? That's another thing I really wanted to talk about. I mean, it's go read the article. It's posted on my LinkedIn page. It's also on Facebook. Hey, Leonie, good morning to you. How are you doing? So, what about the difficult relationships? Right? I I'm a life coach, and I think perhaps one of the reasons I became a life coach is because I'm always dealing with the interior, always dealing with personal development and wanting to grow, all of those kinds of things. And so I remember many years ago having to take a good look at myself and say, okay, if you are the common denominator in all of these relationships that are not going well, at the time it was romantic relationships, I was like, if I'm the common denominator in these relationships that are not going well, problem's not with the guys I'm attracting, problems with me. And that is the hardest thing to do, to look at yourself and to recognize that something needs to change, right? And to have the strength to kind of pick your heart off the floor, put your jaw back in place, and be like, if these relationships aren't going well and there seems to be a pattern of the kinds of people that I'm attracting, how do I then change to be able to attract a different kind of person? It was one of the hardest periods of my life, like starting to deal with issues of self esteem and to expect more of myself and to expect more of people and to be able to get out of certain relationships that were not serving me well, not knowing, whether I'd ever meet somebody or whether I'd have good friends, but knowing instinctively because of doing that self examination that these relationships were not right. And so, what about you with those difficult relationships? There are a couple questions that I think we can ask. There are a couple questions we can ask. What's going on there? Is it a pattern, number one? Is this a one off? Is this just some strange person who's walked into your life for whatever reason, but you normally, attract good relationships, but this one just seems to be a bit all right? Then that's a one off. But if there's a pattern perhaps of attracting people who are not genuine, or people who are abusive? What is it that needs to change in you? I once had a client who was going through that. And, we had to do a lot of work in terms of self esteem, self love, and looking at myself seriously in a positive way as well. That's very important, because many times the reason that we accept ab- abuse from other people is because we don't think we're worth it. One of the ways to know that you're worth it is to also acknowledge the good that you do, and to praise yourself, and to look at yourself in a measured way, but to give yourself grace. And when you give yourself grace, then you expect other people to also give you grace. I'm so sorry, you guys, that I'm not seeing the comments this morning. I should probably get on my phone and see what everybody else is saying. But true things this morning, talking about basically managing difficult relationships, recognizing patterns in these relationships, and figuring out what is your role. And if you do, you don't beat up on yourself. Like, why beat up on yourself? Where does that get you? It doesn't get you anyway to recognize and to know that if I need to change something, I shouldn't just beat up on myself, because that changes nothing. It really is to acknowledge, even though I have things to change, that's okay. Where do I begin? And you just simply do that as neutrally as you can. What's the first step? Recognizing that we are all human and we all have things that we need to change. But here's the thing about managing those difficult relationships. I don't know if perhaps you're like me, and even from the get-go, in meeting somebody new, a professional relationship, forming a friendship, meeting somebody in a networking, you kind of get a sense of who that person is. You kind of already, have a sense of, I know myself, so I know what to watch out for. Let me give you a very honest example. As well as being a health and life coach, I'm also a poet. I'm also into the arts. I'm a writer and performance poet. I belong in that world as well. And so my husband has something saying that, artsy people are just like all over the place. And I don't think I'm all over the place, but definitely there's that leaning towards intuition, and that leaning towards feeling and soul, as opposed to the black and white, the pragmatic types. And so when I do meet them, I know, okay, we are different personalities, right? I will come with feeling. I will come perhaps 2 minutes late, and this person will be like, "You said you'd be here at such and such a time, so you owe me 2 minutes." 2 minutes, okay? All right. It's your minutes. It's all right. Hi, Rebecca. Good morning. Right? So I've learned to recognize from very early the personality types, and especially in a professional or business relationship where you need to work with the person regardless, it pays to have that sense of awareness of yourself, and awareness of taking the time to learn the person, and to take steps to try to make the relationship as smooth and as event free as possible. There will be times, as Brene Brown says, where you have to have difficult conversations, and you need to get into that arena and have those brave conversations about the way forward and what's not working in our relationship. But for the most part, a lot of conflict can be avoided if we first take the time to figure people out. If we first take the time to, okay, what am I looking at here? In this relationship that I'm entering into, whatever it is, romantic, friendship, professional relationship, meeting somebody for the first time, boss, a new employee, new colleagues together on a team. What am I looking at, and how am I going to be showing up, right? Am I just having basic decency no matter who it is? Consideration, responding on time, showing up on time. Yes, I'm saying that for myself, right? Those basic ones, right? That have nothing to do with whether I like you or not, but just simply moving the needle ahead. Am I doing that? And then, where am I failing? What's difficult in this for me? What's difficult? There was one time, I think one of the most difficult relationships I've had professionally, we were just so different. Just oh my gosh. Um and I could hardly wait for our time working together on that project to be over. And so because I knew it would be there would be an end to it, it helped me to be able to stay in the moment and to work with this person the best that I could. If an email came in, boom, get on it. Get on it because I know if I don't, there will be offense. It was that kind of very sensitive person. I'm not that kind of person, but I understood that, whatever this person was going through would not allow her to be expansive enough for the kind of personality that I have. And we needed to get this work done, and I was just very careful. I was just very careful. So, and sometimes that's how we have to be when we realize that the relationship is difficult, right? Of course, you could just walk away. Of course, you could just simply like shut down, not take it on. There are different ways to deal with it. It depends on the dynamic. So, if a difficult employee, if a boss is dealing with a difficult employee, it is different than if it is colleagues together or if you're just coming into a group, that kind of thing. But I feel like the whole reason of the life today is to say, let us become the managers in every relationship. You're not a victim. You don't have to take it. You have a say in how the relationship goes. As much as possible, you do your part to make sure that any relationship, professional, a friendship, a new colleague situation, a business relationship, you want to make sure that you're doing your part to show up as human and considerate and to also give the person the benefit of the doubt. The last thing I want to say, and I pointed to it in the article yesterday, was that sometimes we just don't like people for no reason at all. And we kind of need to step back. I always like to do that. Okay, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? Like, where's this coming from? Why is this person raising this emotion in me? And then you step back and try to look over yourself. If I can say it that way, you kind of step back and look at yourself as objectively from outside as much as possible to see what might be fueling and how are you showing up. And if it was somebody you really really liked, would you be reacting that way? That's always a test for me. And if it isn't, if I'm not reacting the same way, then I have to shamefully shamefully ask myself why. Why am I not extending enough grace, as much grace to this person as to the next? Sometimes there are good reasons. Sometimes the person is just not the same, obviously. The person is different. The person is not, maybe not humble. And that is raising your own ire and your own wanting to put the person in their place, that kind of thing. So let's check in with relationships, right? We are meant to be in relationship. We are meant to love and like and enjoy each other. But it's all of these isms and not knowing how and not taking the time to figure out who we're dealing with that gets in the way. So manage your relationships today, people, and have a wonderful day. So as I said, I'm not usually on at this time. Hey, go follow me on IG at Lisa M Dublin. I've got a Facebook group I've got a Facebook group called To All the Girls Success Club. If you're a girl, if you're a woman, if you're into personal development, head over to Facebook and send a request, and I'll let you into the club. Please answer the questions, okay? I'm finding a lot of people are not answering the questions. Just answer the questions, accept the rules of the group, and come on in. I'm on most mornings, like a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm on live in the group giving and sharing and teaching and enjoying and inspiring. That's what I do as a health and life coach. So yeah, so come on in, and I hope this in some way blessed you. Hey, how you doing? Good morning. Hi, how you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, thanks for being here. Okay, folks, I'm off for the day. I hope you are too. Have a wonderful day. Carpe diem,